Welcome to Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, the podcast that deals with all things mental health. We talk to professionals, survivors, and loved ones about their sometimes informative, sometimes uplifting, and sometimes tragic stories. I'm your host of the show, Todd Rennebaum, advocate, recovering addict, experienced sufferer of depression and anxiety, and author of the children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, brought to you by the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. I am Todd Rennebaum, and yes, I am now on the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, so, there'll be a little bit more promotions, a little easier to find the podcast, and, why don't you go to their website and check out a bunch of other great Saskatchewan-made podcasts, why don't you? Anywho, as I'm recording this, it's July 1st. It's a really, really crazy hot day. It's a crazy hot day yesterday. It's going to be a crazy hot day tomorrow. Kids are home from school. Wife's off work. I'm trying to record this, so if you hear the odd thump or toilet flush or dog bark during this intro, that's why. There is no quiet place to record today, and, I could do it in the car in the garage like I've done before, but I don't want to melt, so I'm just gonna, put up with the odd noises. Anyway, I would just like to thank Annabelle from Penny University Bookstore in Regina. The address is 3104 13th Avenue. Phone number 639-571-2186. Go talk to Annabelle, get some books. If you don't feel like doing that, go on our website, pennyu.ca, and do all your book shopping there. I'd also like to thank everybody that's left really great comments this week. I really, really do appreciate it. I had a great conversation with Stephanie Barrett. I had some lovely comments from Ashley Boehm. I think I'm saying that right. And you know what? This is a wonderful artist in Regina. Her name is Carmen Beaton, or Baton. I don't know how you say that either. But anyway, she has wonderful artwork all over the city. It's mostly nudes, so you can enjoy those. She has t-shirts for sale. Anyway, super great girl, super great artist. You can check her out on Facebook, Instagram, whatnot. Hey. Okay, this week I am talking to Jilly Hyndman. Oh, and I've known Jilly for, at least 30 years or more, which makes me feel really old. Well, yeah, it would be more than 30 years. Anyway, she is my best friend's older sister, and she went through some hard times with her postpartum depression, anxiety, and I learned this, postpartum rage. So because she is a friend of mine, we had a really great conversation and a nice time talking. So I'm pretty happy with this episode because, I get to talk to someone I really like and about something we're both passionate about. So, without further ado, I give you Jilly Hyndman.
I think, the technical terminology is postpartum depression and anxiety, and I would say I had a swirl of both of those with a heavy sprinkling of anger/rage. I'll maybe paint a picture of who I was before that, and then that might explain where my brain went after welcoming a small human into the world.
Right. So people are like, they have something to compare you to.
Yeah.
You need a good base to start from.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
And so we've known each other for literally forever, just about. And so, a little bit about my story, but maybe your listening people don't. So I was typically the person who was good at things, who, things came easily to me. Anything I tried, I was good at. Top student, involved in all the things in the school and community, and kind of a type A person, high achiever. And it's funny because in my in my high school yearbook, I know one of the little things in my write-up said to never have children.
Really?
I should have maybe heeded my advice. I mean, maybe that's not the right way to frame it, but I love my kid. Let me just establish that. I love my kid. I love being a parent now. I think having kids is one of the most amazing growth journeys we can have as humans. But man, did I have a hard time with it when it first happened to me, or when I first made that choice. So yeah, I waited quite a while. I had never wanted to have kids. And then, you fall in love with somebody and they want kids, and you see other people having kids and they seem so cool and it looks like fun. And so I warmed up to the idea, and we decided to have a family, to expand our family, I guess. And so, had a kid. And I had a lot of...
Walk me through that. Mm-hmm. No, I'm kidding.
Well, Todd, here's how that works.
Yeah. When a man loves a woman.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like there were lots of reasons to not have a kid. So I've been type 1 diabetic since I was really young, since I was a kid. And so with that comes a lot of extra care and attention and planning and control and management if you want to become pregnant, first of all, and when you are pregnant. And so did I want to sign up for that? Not really. But then, I figured I can do it. I'm good at things. And so then ended up delivering a healthy kid. She's pretty fabulous. She came out with flaming red hair. And yeah, my world was rocked by that in really amazing good ways, like so many new parents are. And the thing that really challenged me was that I wasn't good at this new thing called being a mom. And it didn't come easily or naturally. It brought up a whole bunch of insecurities and just like feelings of failure, when normally in my life, most things I've tried, I end up being pretty good at them pretty easily. So it was a new realm for me. And I just remember having these moments of like, oh my gosh, I can't send her back. What am I going to do? Like, how did I get here? Lots of regretting my choices, lots of feeling really stuck. I'm really alone, because while my husband was there and present and involved and up in the middle of the night as well, he had, shortly after the birth of our daughter, his mom died. So he was going through his own emotional grieving experience with that huge change in his life. And so he was, distracted for some time by that and trying to balance all the demands of new family and grieving a huge loss in his life and going back to work. So at the time we lived on a farm in southern Saskatchewan, and it was the middle of winter when she was born. And so there I was for, 9 hours a day in our leaky farmhouse with a newborn, feeling like I didn't know how to do any of this stuff, not enjoying any of it at all, desperately wanting to spend my time doing something else, something that I was in control of. Really being at the beck and call of this squishy little thing was so frustrating to me. And then the other thing it brought up for me was all the gender lines that get drawn between women's work and men's work. And as a, pretty vocal feminist, that really got me angry as well. That, well, I guess, I'm the one with the boobs, so I feed her. So that's how that works. And, just being angry at that's the way things are. So that sort of layered onto the feelings of isolation and hopelessness and feeling like I should be good at this and I should be enjoying this. And yeah, there were lots of days where I just sat in our house and cried and, tried to get out and do things. And in the middle of a Saskatchewan winter, you don't want to bundle up a newborn and drive for 30K to get to a place. So you stay put for a lot of it.
Right.
Yeah.
God damn it. I hate when I do that. That's a really good question.
That's okay. It'll come back.
This is how every interview goes. I get like mad and frustrated, and my guest is like, "It's okay, Todd. It's all right.
Yeah, it's all fine. It's all fine."
I know what it was. So you didn't really have any kind of anxiety or depression or anything like that prior to having?
I did. Yeah, I would have what I would describe as sort of constant depression that would come in ebbs and flows through my teen to adult life. That was, I know now, related to managing type 1 diabetes over, all those years. And, so I had actually that was one of my fears about getting pregnant was I had this kind of knowing or assumption that I'm probably going to end up with postpartum. So I don't know if I, set that up for myself to happen or if it would have happened anyway, but it was certainly one of my risk factors and on the radar for reasons to not have a child.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it common people with type 1 diabetes have postpartum, or you just like knew in your mind, like has nothing to do with diabetes? You just kind of knew that you would have trouble.
Yeah, more that I, just knowing that I had managed depression over the years, that I could see that with a huge change in my life, there was a high likelihood that I would have some sort of episode or incident or any disruption in life can cause all that stuff, as you know, to kind of get thrown up in the air. And sometimes it lands in a nice spot and sometimes it just lands right in front of your face and you have to address it. So,
I'm so glad that Jen had to deal with that and not me, because I know just even as the father, I was having postpartum issues.
Yeah, right. Well, it throws you, you bring a baby home, and one of the things I sort of reflected on is that you get so much prep ahead of time about, well, here's what to look forward to month by month in your pregnancy. Here's how to prepare for the birth, all that stuff. And then it's like, well, where's the help after? What do I do after? What, and it's not like there's a manual necessarily. You have to figure out your own kid. But I really felt like, wow, I didn't prepare the right way. And so there's my type A person coming in again saying like, I should have prepared. I should have studied more. I would have aced this test. And so they're, beating myself up mentally for not being prepared enough. Even though I waited till I was 35 to have a kid, I was not prepared enough. And so, you start to tell yourself those lies or stories, and then you start to believe them. And then you start to think, well, I just suck at all of this.
Yeah. Well, it's that whole fear of the unknown that gives me anxiety. So there's that. And you said the word stuck earlier.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, that stuck feeling, when I get that, it is the worst.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's that sense of how to not seeing a way out, right? Not knowing what to do next, not knowing what step to take. Not even not knowing it, but not even seeing that there is a next step to take.
So were you having kind of guilt issues too, because you were not feeling like, what do they call that? The mother-baby connection?
Yeah, well, so that's the funny, I don't know if it's funny, haha, but the interesting thing. There
you
we
had
go.
to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm so thankful for, is that I did feel a deep connection with my daughter. And I know there are some moms who deal with postpartum and they actually have thoughts and actions toward harming their children. And that was not me at all. I wasn't in that realm of it. And I'm so thankful for that. For me, it was a sense of, oh gosh, I created this beautiful thing. I am not worthy of being her mother. How can I possibly fulfill this role? Look at me failing everything on day 1. Look at me failing everything on day 2. Look at me failing on day 3. And then that becoming like really the line in my head. You know, you're not who she needs. You will never be enough for her. Oh my gosh, you're going to ruin her, and those kinds of things. And so flipping between like those kinds of feelings and then this deep, deep love for her, and just being in wonder and awe with this little person that grows and changes every day. So it's a really weird place to be in your own mind when you look at this little wiggly thing and feel this, you know, the kind of love you've never felt before for anything. And then also have this other tape running in your head of, wow, you really suck. You're not worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Honestly, I still feel that way sometimes when my kid's 16. So.
Oh gosh, I know, right? Like we're 10 and a half years in, and there's some days I go, can I just like hire somebody to do this part of it?
You're 16. Can you take care of me now?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Because you don't deserve
One
me.
day.
Or something, I don't know. So where did the rage come in? What kind of, who was that targeted towards, or what was it targeted towards?
Yeah, it's funny, and I hadn't thought about this for a few years. I kind of packed it away, and so unpacking it all again is interesting. You know, I have more. No, it's totally like I signed up for it, right? Like it's all good. It's just I had kind of put it away because I was out of that, you know, new mom of a toddler, mom of a kid going to kindergarten. Like once we got into the elementary school grades, it's like, okay, I got this. And, you know, I'm easing off, I'm relaxing into the role a little bit. The anxiety isn't crippling me every day, every time she's out of my sight. So, yeah, so I mean, it seems like the right time to be looking at it. But the rage was really... Let's see, where was it directed? So on the one hand, it was directed toward my husband, which is so great in a marriage with a new child in the house. Yeah. So, I mean, that made me feel even worse. Like, okay, not only do I suck at being a mom, now I suck at being a partner. And I just suck. But yeah, the rage was tied to like, feeling so alone in the role and that everything was on my shoulders, because I had this story running in my head that I'm the only one. I'm the only one that loves her like this. I'm the only one that can look after her. I'm the only one that like, it's all on me, right? This crushing responsibility to be that source of all for this baby. And the fact that my husband got to, in quotes, go back to work and see other humans and not have to respond to cries and diaper changes and, you know, teething and whatever else, just made me angry. So it's, you know, it's wrapped up in, like I said, some of those gender roles that show up when you bring kids into a family.
Right.
Some of that stuff that's just hardwired, it seems, falling into the roles that we grew up with, maybe. Right. And so that was one part. It was like, oh my God. And I recognized that I was totally in victim mode about that. It's like, you get to do all these fun things and I have to stay here, right? Yeah. Whereas, you know, I could have rewritten that totally. The other part of the rage was around the lies or the half-truths or partial truths that our society feeds new moms. And it's really like all those things you hear about, like, oh, becoming a mother will be so fulfilling. You'll finally feel like a woman. All that crap, right? And even though I'd never bought into it, it's really hard to separate from it when it's everywhere. and when you're not feeling that. So I just had this rage about like, it's all lies. You're all lying.
Yeah.
And I had one girlfriend of mine who had twins a few years ahead of me. And I remember when we had our baby shower or something, made the announcement or something, she gave me a card that said in all caps, "Don't believe the lies." And I didn't quite know what she meant at the time. And I was like,
That's kind of morbid and awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, you're a good friend. And like, that's the thing that I was so angry about, is that I felt like I had been sold a pack of lies about how wonderful becoming a mother is, and B, more so, rage at myself because I believed it, right? Even if I didn't consciously go, I'm buying into that. I think subconsciously I had bought into it, that this is going to be wonderful and I'm going to be good at it.
Right. But yet you knew in high school you didn't want kids.
Exactly,
so.
Right? Believe your younger self. And caveat again, I love my child. I wouldn't trade her for anything.
I'm going to edit that out.
Cool. Yeah.
So with the anxiety of the postpartum, like I've been doing some reading, and because I mean, honestly, I'm a guy and I don't know, like it's one of those disorders I never had to worry about, so I've never really done a whole lot of research on. But I could see this being me as a mother, obsessing about, like, is the baby sleeping on its face? It's going to smother itself.
Yeah.
Is the baby eating too much? Is the baby not eating enough? Is the baby dirty? Is the baby need a bath? You know, like constantly obsessing and worrying. Was that part of it?
Were you there in my house while this was going on? Because, yeah, that's exactly it. It's this, that huge sense of, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for another life, and I don't have the manual, and they change every 7 to 10 days in their signals to you. And yes, are they getting enough food? Are they sleeping enough? Are they, is the temperature in our old farmhouse bedroom that she's in appropriate for her to sleep? And do I put a space heater in there or not? Because the space heater often causes a fire, and like swirly brain of worst case scenarios. I remember there was one time where we had both driven into Regina, my husband and I, and I forget what we had done, but we each had a vehicle. And then we were driving home, and I was following him in his truck, and our daughter was riding with him. And I remember at this one point we go over these train tracks. And so I saw him approach the train tracks and slow down and check and go across. But I had this moment of visualizing the train coming, smashing the truck to pieces, them being mangled in the wreckage. And it was this, fully formed visualization of it happening and a full body sensation of it happening. And I had to stop the car and breathe for a few minutes before I followed them home. So like, there's my anxiety brain just, jumping to a little movie in my head of what, might happen, could happen, but is unlikely to happen. So a few signals like that over the year, the first few months, where it was like, okay, this doesn't seem normal, whatever that means, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Even as a father, but I'm just an anxious dude anyway, but I remember driving Jack when he was a baby into the city, and I stopped in the gas station on the highway, and I left him in the car, and I just ran in and got something and came back, and like, I beat the hell out of myself in my head. Like, what if someone would have came and stole the car? Yeah. And then I was like, this whole story of like me running, chasing after the car and pulling the guy out.
Yeah, I know, right? Like
from Indian Head to Regina, I thought about it. Like, it was insane. So I can only imagine like the hormonal changes inside as well, let alone just being anxious.
Well, yeah. And there was another time, another moment of like, here's the mom of the year situation. Like I had been feeding her Oh, sorry, my insulin pump is beeping at me.
Time's up.
Yeah, that's it. You're done. Just a sec. I'll shut this off. I'll start that again. So there was one time I had been feeding her and she fell asleep on me. I was sitting in our living room. And so I thought, okay, I'll get up and I'll put her in her playpen or her crib to keep sleeping. So I stood up and I went around the chair I'd been sitting in and I tripped over one of our dogs who was also sleeping there. I couldn't see her because I was holding a baby. And I tossed the baby across the floor and she bounced a few times and I lost it. I can laugh about it now, but it was so terrifying. It was so terrifying. And of course, my brain went to, oh my God, I killed her. I've given her brain damage, all the worst things. And of course, she woke up and started crying because, she fell on the floor. So anyway, we drove into the emergency room just to be sure everything was cool. And luckily, the whole time I'm, exactly like you said, beating myself up, just berating myself for how could I have done that? How could I not have looked through my arm and through her to the floor to see the dog sleeping? How could I not have held on to her and done a tuck and roll? It's like, yeah, right. But the thing that kind of helped was we got in to see the doctor, the pediatrician, through the emergency room. She was this lovely doctor. She was probably in her late 60s. And she asked, what happened and how did it happen? And she just looked at me and said, oh, don't worry about it. My kid fell off the bed when she was, 2 months old. She's fine. She's a doctor now too. Everything's fine. And it just so normalized dropping your baby for me that I was like, oh, okay. My anxiety went from 100 to 99.5. So thank you. But it was really that permission to not be okay with doing these things, right? And being okay with making mistakes, which was so hard for me at that point. So yeah.
I remember holding Jack as a baby, walking through a doorway, and I clipped his head on the door jamb. Ugh.
Yeah, there's been other things that have happened, and I'm just like, rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine.
Cavemen had babies, and they're okay, so.
Exactly, right? We've survived as a species with people less capable than you and I, so we'll be okay.
Hey, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, when your husband's mother passed away, did you feel any resentment towards that because it took, his attention or it distracted him? And because I could totally see me doing that if I was a mother. It's like, oh, you have to go and die now? Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It's so stupid, but
how dare you? This is my moment. Yeah. Awful, right? I'm sure there was a little of that. We knew she was declining. It was a pretty rapid decline, and so we knew it was coming. And one of the really beautiful things is that the day after our daughter was born, his mom and her husband made the trip into Regina to come to the hospital to see her, even though his mom was not doing well. But we have beautiful pictures of that. And then I think it was about a week or so after we got home from the hospital that we drove up to where his mom was hospitalized in another community. And she got to hold our daughter and snuggle with her and have beautiful pictures taken as well. So we have those really beautiful moments together, memorialized. But yeah, it's just this, it's that it feels so unfair to have to distract your attention into two different places, right?
Yeah.
Having a child is usually this really beautiful, exciting thing that's happening. And then on the other hand, you're losing a parent, which is probably one of the saddest things to be dealing with. And to hold both of those at the same time, gosh.
Did you have empathy for him at that time, or are you too involved in your own postpartum depression, anxiety, rage?
I think I think the full-on rage and stuff came a few months into the postpartum period. I think we were just living in the swirl and overwhelm of new baby at home. For the first month or so, first couple months, it was just like survival mode, right? And then when there were moments where I could have a thought of my own, maybe a half hour of quiet to think about things or let thoughts creep in, that's when those real sort of negative self-talk and resentment and anger started showing up. So yeah, I think it kind of came to a head, I want to say May or June. So our daughter was born the end of December. And so it was about May or June where I remember going just for a regular checkup to our doctor, and he checked her over and he made some comment like, well, you're doing such a wonderful job. She's absolutely perfect. Everything is right where it should be in terms of growth and development, all those things. And I just burst out crying. And I was like, I hate all of this. I hate everything. I hate my life. I don't want to be here. And he was like, oh, okay, well, here's what we need to do. So like instantly, I was so thankful. I'd had this same doctor since I was 12 years old. And so that was such a lucky thing to have that continuity of care with him. And then he recommended I reach out to Sally Elliott, who is, well known in the Regina community for providing support to new parents. And she had at that time had a postpartum support group. And I met with her, and she provided a book for me to read that some local women had written. And I didn't find the support group especially helpful. There were some folks in there that were really more on the psychosis end and the wanting to harm their children end. And they were getting what they needed out of it, but I didn't identify with that. So it didn't feel like a good use of my time and energy and attention. So I went the solo counseling route and did the thing that has been the hardest thing in my whole life. Asked for help from my family.
And I know your family. I mean,
I know they're the worst, right?
Oh,
no.
That would be hell.
No, right? Like, could there be any better people in the world? Probably not. But I'm, again, I was always that kid who just figured things out and just did them and was an adult when I was 6 years old and didn't need anybody to do anything. And I was the one they come to for help. And so to be the one that said, I need help and I'm finding this really hard, was really humbling for me. And I still get emotional about it because it's still something I have trouble with as a much older person now too. So,
well,
yeah,
I think tears equals ratings. So,
ooh, well, do you want me to crank them up?
I don't know. I actually haven't had anyone cry yet, so I don't know that. I'm just assuming.
All right.
You told a story the other night on a Zoom call we were on about, I think you were laying in your basement or something, and you were looking up and you had some.
Yeah.
That kind of You go ahead.
I will. Yeah, we lived in this old farmhouse that had been a 1940s farmhouse that had been moved and put on a new basement in the 90s. And it was a gorgeous old character house that we had full intentions of renovating and making pretty and lovely and whatnot. And in the meantime, it was drafty and hot and had poor air circulation. And I remember it being a particularly warm day. It must have been late May or early June, maybe. And so I went down to the basement because that's where it's cool. And we had our hammock set up because, well, it's a dingy basement. You don't want to actually put furniture down there. So I was lying in the hammock, just trying to cool off in, both literally and figuratively, because I was just seething with rage. I was so frustrated and so angry. And I think in this moment, I was particularly angry with the state of being a parent and the level of responsibility, and my husband, again, being able to go off to work or go to a Rider game or, go do fun things and not have a little person strapped to his body while he did it. And I was just looking up at the rafters and just thinking about, if I decided to not be here anymore, then they would know. Then they would realize what I'm going through. Then that I would show them by taking my own life how hard it's been. And then they would appreciate me, and then they would help me, whoever they was. But I just remember having these really, unhealthy thoughts about, I can't see a way out. I have to see this through. There's no going back, and I don't want to. I don't want to see this through necessarily. So what's my way out? And I just remember looking up at those rafters. I can still see them in my mind's eye now, and I can feel that hammock under me. And the little thought that came into my head was, I can't do that to her. So, right. Again, that deep, deep love for my child is what kept me here. So I went from that feeling of I'm not worthy of her to be her mother to I can't be the one who causes her pain by not being here. Right. I love her too much to be the one that ruins her life in this way. And that was a really clear message or voice, I don't know, that made me realize, no, I have to see this through. I have to believe it will get better. I have to believe people will help and that I'll get support when I ask for them. And I have to believe that I can do this. And I don't have to be perfect at it, but I have to stick around and try. So, yeah, that was probably one of my lowest moments.
Was that before you talked to the doctor, you think?
I think it was, yeah. Yeah.
Had you had any thoughts like that before or after?
I think I had a few before, yeah.
But this one made you feel icky.
Yeah. This one was things are getting real.
That was a serious thought there.
Yeah. That was a serious thought with some additional thoughts behind it about logistical things. And, that was a real strong signal that, okay, I'm not doing so well on my own with this. This is not something I can resolve on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny how the little alien, like you said, in a way, they're the one that cause all these emotions, but in a way, they're the ones that pull you out of it too.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean that's
it was
the
ultimately
mind.
your decision to have them, but
I know,
you can't
right?
blame them, but yeah.
And that's the mind fudge of it all, right? Is that
you can swear.
I won't, in case my parents listen.
Fuck them.
Awesome. Yeah. It's that's the confusing thing about it when you're having, irrational thoughts about stuff, and you're trying to find the rationale behind it, and your brain is making these weird connections, and thank goodness my brain made that connection that no, you love her and she needs you.
Yeah.
Not just your life is awful and you need to get out of it.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's funny, I just listened to a podcast about intelligence and how sometimes it's a detriment because if you want the end result, like you're doing a research or you're trying to explain something to yourself and you know what the end result you want, you can actually connect dots to the point that it is that end result. So like you said, you could easily justify to yourself doing this, but then you had thank God you had some self-awareness there too at the last minute. But
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't like I was, going to do something in that moment. It was that it felt like a real possibility in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. I had another incident like that sort of came out of the blue at me, and I attribute it to postpartum, even though it happened about 4 years later. And I mean, it was super confusing. I was commuting into the city to go to work, and I had our daughter in the back seat because I was dropping her off at daycare in the city. And the highway we commuted on is two-way traffic. It's a trucking route out of the city. And I just remember, a typical day, nothing out of the ordinary, driving toward the city. And at this one moment, there was a semi coming toward us in the oncoming lane. And I had this intense urge to pull over in front of it.
Right.
And it was like, I don't know where that came from. I certainly didn't wake up that morning going, okay, today's the day, or anything like that. And so it took all my strength to stay in our lane and get to my workplace. And luckily, I was super shaken. And luckily, I had an amazing manager at that time. I went and talked to her and said, so here's what happened on the way to work. And she was like, Kate, you're calling our mental health crisis line. You're getting EFAP. You're taking a week away from here. Just, do you want me to drive you home? What do you need? And she herself had been someone who had dealt with mental illness. And so she understood some of the things that were going on. And that was, when I went through counseling at that point, it was a lot of the same thought patterns and issues and rage that had shown up in those first 6 months of our daughter's life had reemerged.
You relapsed.
I relapsed in postpartum, which is, and so I started looking around like, is this a thing? Am I just like super weird, or is this a thing? And there were a few studies I had found at the time, and I haven't looked at them recently, but postpartum can last up to 6 or 7 years. And so I thought, oh, okay, well, again, thank you for the normalization of this. But it's certainly not what's talked about openly anywhere, that, hey, by the way, watch out for your relapse day. Awesome.
Yeah. Pull over if you are driving. I have a friend whose mother, like, once she had her last child, like, it affected her so much that it was like the rest of her life she had nothing but mental illness issues. I believe it. And like, who knows, right? Like, I'm not the medical professional, but I'm sure there's something with the hormones and the chemicals in your system that get changed and evolve over time, whatever words you want to use, that can lead to some of those more likelihoods or, more frequency or whatever it is. So. Right. So if you could go back in time, what would you choose? To go ahead with having a baby still?
Oh, yeah. Okay. For sure. Yeah. Well, and
I'm going to edit that out too.
Fantastic. For sure. Like I said, when my brain's working properly, it's honestly the most amazing experience. Like, I don't know. It just really is. To have a small person that you're responsible for supporting through their journey, and they show up and they are really the teacher of you. I wouldn't be who I am today if I hadn't had her. And there's just experiences you would never have without having a kid. And I totally know it's not for everyone, and I'm not pushing it on everyone, but for me, even though it's not anything I ever particularly wanted to do or strived to do, I'm sure glad I did it. Because, our life is awesome, and she's awesome and hilarious and fun and smart, and who knows?
I get it. You have the best kid ever.
I totally do.
I remember what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about the kind of the rage stuff, because they do touch on it in like TV shows and popular television or whatever, but it's always comedies. It's always like silly. Oh, she's gone crazy. She's so mad. The new mom, and they haven't slept, and they always like kind of make light of it.
Yeah,
which is fine. Like I get humor in mental health, but
yeah, and there's truth to that. It's like, yeah, you're disheveled and you're, unkempt and, frantic and running on fumes. I get it. Yeah, one of the other things that enraged me, and maybe more so now, is that at least when I was in those early years, the antidote to all of that was wine for mummies. It's like, it's mummy's wine time, right? And exactly. I'm like, well, the way to be an effective parent and human is not necessarily to supplement with wine.
Take a depressant.
Yeah. So it's like, that can't be the only solution, and it can't be like, and there's, like you said, there's humor around it. I don't know. There's so much around that about, don't mess with mummy's wine time, right? Mummy needs her wine. Well, why does mummy need her wine? Yeah. What are the supports that are lacking that mummy feels she needs to turn to wine to make this family thing bearable?
Right.
So I like to poke that one in the eye when I get the opportunity to.
I like that saying.
So, yeah.
Something I read online about postpartum was a lady just writing about her experience, and one of the things was really listen to your body, but it's hard when you're busy and you're taking care of everything and you're running around. And she actually said, like, take even 3 minutes just to, like, if your neck is hurting, it's probably because you're stressed out. But you don't even notice the neck is hurting because you're so busy and trying to take care of everything. But to actually, like, just throughout the day, take these small little moments just to, like, do a body scan and a brain scan real quick. But I don't know if that would have helped you or not. But
yeah, and I mean, I was trying to do all the things, right, that were supposed to be helpful for me too, like exercise and trying to have adult time and carving out time, just for myself, that without a baby attached to me. And those definitely helped. And what I noticed was, because of that sense of crushing responsibility, I would often let those boundaries slide, right? Like, I can put my own needs aside because the baby needs me. Well, we know now that you can't help someone if you have not helped yourself. So, that's one of my other big lessons through my life is fill my own cup before I pour it into everyone else's.
It's a good cliche.
Yeah, it totally is. And it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk to, was she a counselor, I guess? You mentioned her name, Sally Elliott?
Sally Elliott. So Sally Elliott just passed away, I want to say a month or two ago. So she was a bit of an institution in Regina. She hosted prenatal classes for expectant parents, and she's just a dynamo of experience, of real talk about what's happening with your body, what to expect at the hospital. She was an animated character in the classes. If you know anyone that's ever taken one, they will tell you they were.
I think Jen and I had her for prenatal classes.
Yeah,
because it sounds a lot like the lady we had.
Yeah, and she's just had the biggest heart and was such a pillar for a lot of new moms in the community. And so she was just. Because I'd taken prenatal classes with her, I knew that she offered this. She touched on postpartum in the preparatory classes. And so she had, at the time she was working through the YMCA, I think, and had a drop-in parents group and things like that. All those lovely supports that are there should you need them as at least a starting point.
Right. So what did treatment, or I don't know what you want to call it, for lack of a better word, what was treatment for postpartum depression look like?
Well, for me, it was talk therapy. I'm averse to taking extra medication if I don't have to. In the past, I had tried a couple of depression medications and didn't really like the side effects, like kind of feeling numb and just like not myself. And so I've had success with talk therapy, and really the thing for me was creating boundaries for my own, for myself to be my own person, not just a person in service of this little human. So that was a big step, was me claiming time for myself, demanding support from others, trying to create a village to support rather than doing it in my lone wolf kind of way. And really just, doing my own kind of digging and research into, what's normal, what are all the lies we get fed, why are they fed to us, and then just like, being vocal about it a bit. Here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what it's like. I actually hate being a mom right now. Anyone else? Oh, turns out 70% of you do? Cool. There's more of us. Right?
I swear to God, one of the best things for any kind of mental illness or mental health issues is like 100% transparency, honesty, being yourself. And because like shoving that crap down just makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah, and I wanted to look up, and I did look it up, but now I forget the name of it. There's the book that Sally had given me to read was something about, what is it? The Mask? Something about the mask. And it was the stories from 3 women, their firsthand accounts of having different degrees of postpartum. And it was about how we are expected to show up a certain way, especially as new moms. That, we love our baby, and yes, it's the most natural thing. Everything's coming easy. We just love every moment of it. Right. It's so fulfilling on all the levels, when in fact, for a lot of women, it's just not. It's just everything but that, right? Like, I agree, and that's where how I've tried to live my life since then is like full disclosure, right? Like, you're probably going to get more than you want from me.
I know. I'm pretty sure I freak people out.
But it's like, when we show up trying to be a version of something that we think people want, well, that's at the detriment to our own, validation of who we actually are in the world. And so what's wrong with me being completely myself? Like, I think that's my job. So why wouldn't I be me, and all the highs and lows that come with being me? And why wouldn't you be you and share what it's like to be you? That's how we create human connection, because between those different stories, there's commonality of the human experience. And so if we all try to look like the same thing and behave like the same thing, well, that gets pretty boring, and we lose actual connection there. So I'm all about,
if everybody was honest.
Yeah.
Like, we're all more common than we actually think if we actually talked about the stuff that we don't talk about. But
Totally. Which is why I love what you're doing, because you're talking about the stuff.
I just love the attention.
Well, there you go, right? And that thank you for being honest. The whole time I've known you, you've been an attention hog. So this is perfect. You're living your destiny.
I can't help it if everyone else is boring. No, I'm kidding.
I love it.
I've said this many times, so I get to say it to someone with diabetes and anxiety and because gone through depression. I wish mental illness, because, anxiety, it'll play a game with you. It's like, am I having an anxiety attack, or am I, is this reasonable? Is this not reasonable right now? I wish I could just take a blood test and be like, yep, okay, it's anxiety. It's not something else. And it's like, okay, I have to go ask for help now.
Yeah. Oh, time for my dose to deal with this reading I'm getting. Cool. No biggie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're always second guessing yourself and whatever, because, it's your brain. So it's.
Well, yeah.
But, anyway.
I know. It's
so
like,
you're lucky you're diabetic.
I know, right?
It's not fair.
Thanks for acknowledging that.
So I don't want to make this about your husband, but for a husband that's kind of watching their loved one go through this and, walking on eggshells and, also probably frustrated and, their life's upside down a little bit too. What would you tell a husband who's watching his wife go through something like this? Or doesn't have to be a wife, but, baby mama.
A partner or whatever. Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. What would I tell them? Well, what instantly comes to mind, and I'm flipping and flopping on it in my brain, is to, just keep asking what they need. And on the other hand, when I was asked what I needed, it felt like one more thing I had to figure out.
Quit asking me questions.
Quit asking me questions. Exactly.
Would it help if he told you to calm down?
No. Well, it would depend on the way, perhaps.
Calm down.
I can only speak to my experience. What helped and would have helped for me is share the responsibility, take on the leadership of the care of the child. Don't, and this is what I mean by those gender roles that show up. It's like there's so much default to the woman because she will know. The thing is, I've never had a baby before. I don't know, but I perceived a lot of what was happening as, well, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? I don't know. I've never done this before. And so being really angry from that perspective too, instead of when he would go and research a thing and say, well, let's try this. Great. Thank you. You took leadership, you took ownership, you co-parented, you stepped in when you noticed I was exhausted, like all those things. Keep being the rock, keep offering, keep asking if there are other supports that are needed. Just take the frickin' baby and go somewhere with it for like hours. Call in people to help. Yeah, it's like, it's such a tricky spot for the husband or the spouse.
Because I imagine there's a lot of women that probably do that. But like I said, that a lot of men are probably frustrated and their worlds are a little upside down too. So then it almost turns into a pissing contest. Who's the bigger victim? And
exactly.
whatnot.
Yeah. Who's dealing with more? Well, I did this and I did that. And it can, right? If you're not at an emotional maturity level to be able to have kind of open and frank conversations about what you're experiencing.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, for the most part, you're both running on no sleep and not knowing what's going on and what that sound means and, all those things. You're learning it both at the same time. And so it's just, I think it's about remembering that you're a partnership and showing up for your team. Why am I using sports analogies? I don't know. But like showing up for your team, right? Like, what does your team need? Oh, okay. She needs to sleep. She needs some alone time. She needs food. She needs distraction. Okay, then supply those things, right? And if you are the one that's going back to a workplace every day, well, what can you put in place? What can you do before and after that time that you're away? What can you take off the responsibility list so that things are easy for whoever's left at home? And maybe that means if you can
look for help too.
Yeah, totally. It's like,
That's
hey,
what I should have done.
maybe for the first 3 months, you just cough up the funds, to hire a house cleaner. Cool. Then you don't have to worry about it. Just maybe you get all your friends to do a food train or whatever it's called, where, they deliver dinner 5 nights a week for the first 2 months so that you don't even have to think about it. Just some of those things that will make life easier. And I mean, those kinds of community supports become exponentially more important as you have a child with special needs, or if you've had a difficult delivery or some other complications. Like, if there's a way to make your life easy so you can heal, sleep, eat, bond, and survive, you'll get through to the point where things get kind of back into a normal lifestyle. Whatever that means.
Something I just thought of that would be really difficult is if you've already had a couple kids and those were, they were a normal 1 week, 2 week postpartum baby blues and everything was normal. And then by your third and fourth one, you really get, a good dose of it. How difficult that would be for both partners, because the father's expecting her to, be this great mom like she was with the other kids. And anyway, I don't know.
Well, and I think to me, it's like redesigning your relationship every time there's a new member of your family showing up, right? It's like, okay, so how are we gonna be as a family? What are our responsibilities going to be for the different things in our that are required to keep our family running? What are we going to let slide? Can we lower our standards for, my favorite standard to lower is housekeeping. It's like, I'm just going to let that slide because it's more important that my kid's eating healthy food and she's getting enough sleep.
But you still wore makeup.
What? Oh, don't even get me started on the makeup situation.
I still put on makeup, do my hair every morning, but the house cleaning, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, no, I would add the makeup to the list too. It wasn't even on the list to begin with.
Yeah, right, exactly. So what would you tell another mother what to expect when you're expecting postpartum depression? You should write that book.
Oh gosh. Expect to ask for help and expect that you're not gonna be good at everything. You might be good at a bunch of it, and that's awesome, and I celebrate you. And if you're not, don't beat yourself up. There is no there's no test you have to reach the top of. Oh, that's not the right metaphor. Sorry. But there's no standard you have to hit. You don't have to tick all these boxes to be a good mom. A good mom loves her kid, and a good mom loves herself. And that's all that matters. And do the things you need to do to be healthy and feel like you can go on day after day. And when it's hard, ask for that help. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Keep breathing.
Yeah,
know that it gets better. Know that it gets better.
Jen and I thought we were prepared to have a kid too, and it's like, this is and we didn't have, too big a trouble. There wasn't, it was kind of a normal thing, but even that was like, holy crap. I don't care. I could have read books for 30 years and I still would have been prepared for it. Yeah, no,
it's funny, right? Because people will give you unsolicited advice about having a kid, and none of it, some of it prepares you, but it doesn't really prepare you until you get into it yourself, because your kid is not anybody else's kid. And the way you handle stress is not the way, most of the other people in the world handle stress. So having a kid, it brings everything to the surface in how you deal with everything. And it gives you an opportunity for personal growth.
That's right. You learn a lot about yourself.
You sure do.
Well, Jill, is there anything that I missed that you want to add? How are you doing now? What were you?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your life?
I'm good now. Yeah, let me think. Yeah, I don't think I've had any sort of, what did you call it? Relapses with the postpartum anyway. I mean, I still have what I would consider normal to high parental anxiety, just about having a young person in the world and then a young female person in the world. There's a lot coming at her that we're going to have to prepare for and live through. But I'm in a good place. I've gotten all the supports I needed in a number of different ways. And I know so much more about my own tendencies and my own pitfalls and my own triggers, or, the things that are the red flags to me that I know I need to make a change. I can recognize those a lot sooner now. So yeah, I'm in a good place.
So practice makes perfect.
Oh, there we go.
And are you life coaching still?
I am, yeah. So I am plug it. Well, so yeah. I'm a professional coach. My business is called The Heartrageous Coach, and I'm a life, death, and leadership coach. And in particular, in the last year, I've been focusing a lot on coaching people with chronic illness. So chronic physical illness, typically, and my focus there is to help them lighten the mental and emotional burden that comes along with having a chronic physical condition. So,
that's a whole other episode.
It really is. Yeah, but it's kind of this awakening I had when I looked at what it's been like for living with type 1 diabetes for almost 40 years and the emotional and mental toll that takes on me. And I came to that through some of my coach training and coaching I was receiving. And then I realized, I know a lot about that, and I've developed some tools and skills around that. Maybe I could help other people because that's what my job is. And so just the last year or so, I've decided to focus on that quite a bit. And it's been really rewarding. So that's good. So I'm in the mental wellness realm quite often. So it's a nice place to be able to help people out.
This has been lovely.
It has. Little trips down memory lane.
I was going to say mammary lane as
memory lane.
Breastfeeding joke.
Dad joke. Classic.
Thank you so much, Jilly. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story and being so open and vulnerable and honest, as I do all of my guests. But yeah, that was very nice of you to do that. Thank you. Anyway, next week, I am speaking to Kaylee LaFontaine. She is a former prison guard, and she's going to talk about mental health regarding people that work in prisons and people that are living in prisons. She is also the executive director of the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan, and one of their big things that they do there is try to abolish prisons, within reason. Check them out. You'll see. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe, rate, and review however you are listening to this podcast. It only takes a moment, and it really helps the show out with getting noticed. This episode has been sponsored by Penny University Bookstore, 3104 13th Avenue. Call 639-571-2186 and check out their online bookstore at pennyu.ca. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is supported by Connexus. Wellness, however you define it, is achievable. You don't even need to figure it all out by yourself. Talk to Connexus. They'll give you guidance, motivation, and the push you need to reach your goals. They've got you. They're your financial partner, and they know you can achieve your very best, your financial best. Prove them right. Start right at Connexus Credit Union. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is also sponsored by Direct West. Are you a business owner looking for new avenues to promote your business? Direct West digital billboards are a great opportunity to highlight a new product, new promotion, or anything else you'd like your customers to know about. You can get local, expert marketing help for your business at directwest.com. If you are having a mental health crisis, please call the Canadian crisis number at 1-833-456-4566. In Saskatchewan, the mobile crisis team in Prince Albert is 306-764-1011. In Regina, it's 306-525-5333, and in Saskatoon, it's 306-933-6200. Don't forget to check out my children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Sometimes Daddy Cries is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Available on Amazon.ca. I'll see you next time. This is Todd Renabaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Bye.